Exercise 10-19. We get to decide if a transaction is going to be a capital expenditure or if we're going to expense it. So here's my instructor tip. This problem uses the phrase revenue expenditure. All that means is you're going to take a cost. If it's a revenue expenditure, you're going to take the cost and you're going to expense it. You're going to record it as an expense instead of recording it as an asset. Why? Because it's not increasing the capacity or efficiency of the asset, nor is it extending the useful life of an asset. So like changing the oil in your car. Does that extend the useful life of the car? No, that's just normal maintenance of the car. So you would just expense that. However, if you got a new engine that's going to make the car last longer, then that would be a capital expenditure. So consider the expenditures listed below and classify each expenditure as either a capital expenditure. Now remember, capital expenditure is the same as capitalizing something. And when you capitalize a cost, that just means you're increasing an asset. You're debiting the asset account. Or are we going to do a revenue expenditure, which just means we're going to expense the item. And this is all pertaining to this machinery. All right, so the purchase price of the machinery. What do we do to the purchase price? Well, obviously, that's going to go in as a debit to the asset account called machinery. So that is a capital expenditure. All right. Then we have ordinary recurring repairs to keep the machinery in good working order. So the machinery has been used for a while and it's already being used, and then we just need to do some normal ordinary repairs. In that case, you're going to expense it, called a revenue expenditure. I don't like to use a phrase revenue expenditure. I just like to call it expensing the cost. And then we've got lubrication before the machinery is placed in service. Now the key word is before. Since this lubrication was needed to get the machinery ready for its first use, that's part of the cost of getting the machinery ready to use in the business. So therefore, that's part of the cost of the machinery, and you're going to debit the machinery account, and that's called a capital expenditure or capitalizing it. Then we've got periodic lubrication after the machinery is placed in service. All right. The key word here is after the machinery is placed in service. So we've been using it, and then you need to do the monthly or quarterly lubrication of the machinery. You're just going to expense that. Then we have a major overhaul to extend the useful life by 3 years. So since it's extending the useful life, you have to capitalize that cost. You have to increase the machinery's cost by debiting the machinery account. And then we've got sales tax paid on the purchase price. So when we originally buy this machinery, if we had to pay sales tax, that's just part of the cost of the machinery. So we are going to capitalize or debit the machinery account. Then we've got transportation insurance while the machinery is in transit from the seller to the buyer. All right. So because this machinery is not yet ready for its intended use, and we need to pay the transportation insurance on the machinery to get it ready for its first use, that's part of the cost of the machinery. So you're just going to debit the machinery account called a capitalization. And then when we pay to install it, any costs to install the machinery is part of the cost of the machinery. So therefore that's a capital expenditure. You're going to debit the machinery account. And then training of personnel for initial operations of machinery. So the keyword is initial operation. So because we needed to train these people before the machinery could be used the very first time, that's part of the cost of the machinery, and that's going to be a capital expenditure, which again just means you're debiting the machinery account. Now later on, once the machinery is being used and we need to train more people, that's going to be an expense. And that's it.